what their weekly earnings are. If you're already earning 80%, then that means a young worker will be paid 80% of 80%.
Colleen Lees-Galloway.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. Mr Chair, Clause 7 in Part 2 of this bill actually reveals why this piece of legislation is actually absolutely unnecessary, or should be absolutely unnecessary if this government was actually doing its job. Because Clause 7, as other members have referred to, establishes the transitional period, or the transitional effect for those workers who are already on the 3-month starting out provisions that are already available. And the government says that this bill is about giving young people a chance to get into the workforce. And they say that the way to do that is to have a period of time in which they can be paid less. Well, Mr Chair, not that we're entirely comfortable with it, but that situation already exists. So the answer to the government's question of how can we get more young people into work has already been answered. But of course what this bill does is extends the period of time from 3 months to 6 months, and it extends the people who will be affected by the legislation from not just 16 and 17-year-olds, but to 18 and 19-year-olds as well. And therefore we need the transitional effect of Clause 7. Why? Well, the only answer can be that this government has failed to create jobs. Because what we've got now is a situation where these young people who will be impacted by this piece of legislation are competing for low-wage, low-skilled jobs with an older population who used to occupy the high-skill, high-wage jobs which no longer exist in New Zealand. That is the answer to getting more young people into work, creating more jobs so that people who qualify for the full adult rate actually have decent work to be applying for. But no, people in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, their 60s are competing with teenagers to work at McDonald's. That's the situation that this government has created, and that's why young people can't get into work, and that's why the government needs to pass this legislation so that young people can compete with older people for the jobs that only young people ought to be doing. And the only reason we are in that situation, Mr Chair, is because this government has failed to create jobs, because this government has lost its ambition, because this government has lost its way, because this government has no plan. I'd like to refer to some comments made by Mike Sabin whilst debating Part 2, because they contradicted an interjection that he made earlier on while my colleague Sue Moroney was speaking. He got up and said that 20-year-olds aren't going to be chucked out of their jobs so that a 16-year-old can come in. Or 25-year-olds even. Look, that's probably true. But what Mike Sabin did say in an interjection was, if there is a job, it's more likely to go to a young person than it is to an older person, which actually accepts the fact, that younger... Well, first of all, where are the new jobs, Mike Sabin? Where are the new jobs? If they're in McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's, then that is a sad indictment on this government's efforts in getting our economy going again. If that's where the new jobs are, if those are the jobs that people are competing for, then what does that tell you, Mr Sabin, about this government's failure to get the country working again? 16 and 17-year-olds are not going to be competing for engineering jobs. They're not going to be competing for research jobs. They're not going to be competing for teaching jobs or for medical jobs or for nursing jobs. They're competing for low-wage, low-skill, fast food, supermarkets, those kinds of jobs. And the only reason why they are competing with older people is because all the other jobs that people should be doing have gone. And that's because of this government's failure. Mr. Speaker, it's no wonder so many New Zealanders are opposed to this piece of legislation, and Labour is happy to represent them.
Call Simon O'Connor.
That the question be now put.
I'll hear Dr. Megan Woods.